What's going on, guys? Bowman's back in the Shock Surplus Shock, talk more shocks, and today, super stoked, we got the Dobinsons IMS for 21 plus Broncos in, and before I rip off my Bilsteins and throw these on for testing, wanted to do a little unboxing to give you guys a good idea of what to expect with these kits. For those of you guys not familiar with Dobinsons, which in the States, we know a lot of you guys haven't heard of them. They are a fairly big deal down in Australia. They're actually the #1 spring manufacturer down there. And they make everything for your rig, from snorkels, bumpers, whatever, to outfit your rig as a whole. So when we're talking about these systems, we're talking about complete kits, shocks, springs, everything. And on these Broncos, they're a full coilover kit with a ton of different spring options to set you up for your application. These are a super solid, middle-of-the-road option, similar in price to things like the Eibach Stage 2s, Bilstein 6112s, and stuff like that. And truthfully, they fit right in the middle between those two. Whereas something like the Eibach Stage 2 kits use a 46mm piston 2-inch body, and the Bilsteins use a 60mm piston or a 2.6-inch body. These are at 50mm on the piston, 2.2 on the body, so you get a little bit more dampening force than the Eibach. Maybe not quite as much as the Bilstein, but in terms of feel, reliably, they're right between the two. On these Broncos, those Eibachs were pretty soft, almost too soft for me, and were a little easily unsettled. And the Bilsteins I love. I've been loving my 6112s, but I can definitely see how they're a little firm for some people. So having something in the middle that has close to the control of the Bilstein and close to the comfort of the Eibach really makes them a solid Goldilocks shock for a lot of people. Now, you heard me mention Dobinsons is about the #1 spring manufacturer from down under, and so springs are their thing. On these kits, there's a wide variety of spring options, whether you have a 2.3 or 2.7, 2-door or 4-door, or if you're riding light or have some constant load. So they make them super solid to dial in for how you're gonna use your rig. They are a threaded body adjustable shock like the Eibach 2.0, but most of your lift is coming from the spring, so it's gonna be hard to get back down to stock height. In this case, they do 1.5 to 3.5 inches of lift depending on applications. That's 1.5 to 2.5 on Sasquatch, 2.5 to 3.5 on non-Sasquatch, and then cut that 1/2 inch for Badlands models. What that means is, since you're getting most of the lift from the spring, if you add weight later or need to do some playing with adjusting them to sit the way you want them to sit, you can use these preload adjusters to get you there. The cool thing is, they're a steel body, so although it's not necessarily recommended, if you need to make a couple small tweaks to that preload, you can do it while they're installed on the vehicle. Just throw it on jack stands, because none of us are strong enough to lift a car by each corner. As I said, there's multiple spring options. They come in a couple different colors as well. We got teal here, black and red will be available soon as well. So, as far as springs goes, these are hard to beat. You compare them to things at a similar price point, like those Eibachs. The Eibachs come with the springs they come with, and at least in the front, you can swap them out because they're a universal style coilover spring. In the rear, they are flat ground on both sides, but since they're a progressive spring, it's hard to get other spring options for them. And simply put, valving-wise, they're not a shock I would put weight on. The Bilstein 6112s and 6100s, by comparison, feel like they would be killer with tons of weight, but they're either only available as the 6100 for your stock springs or 6112s with Bilstein springs, which are really a stock spring rate kind of spring. So it is going to be a little bit more difficult to get those set up for constant load, whereas Dobinsons takes these IMS and makes them so that you can run a wide variety of spring options. They offer those spring options. So if you have a little heavier build and you don't want to spend $1 million on a baller coilover setup, these are a killer choice that allows you to get the spring rate you actually need, just as you need, and not fiddle with a bunch of custom stuff. Now, I did mention feel, and they're a perfect combo between or a perfect middle ground between the Bilstein and the Eibach. I fully expect these to be way more stable than the Eibach and a good bit more comfortable than the Bilstein. Not only does piston size tell us that's gonna be the case, but also just their ethos as a brand. These are going to be a really solid trail-oriented setup that's designed to be more comfortable and composed out on the trail and on the road, whereas I might find Eibachs more for somebody who just wants a good cushy ride in a lift. Bilsteins are for a sporty German car ride. These are perfectly in the middle. Another thing about that piston size that I think is really, really cool is I did notice that on the Eibachs, when I was running 37s on my Bronco, they were dribbling like a basketball in a gym. Now that I have 38s, the 6112s seem to handle it no problem. So I'm predicting, and we'll obviously find this out because we're testing them, that these should be just enough to control the unsprungness of a really big wheel and tire and still ride good. But of course, we'll let you know how that pans out. In terms of serviceability, longevity, and reliability, I think these are near the top of the list. I won't come out and say that anything outlasts a Bilstein because we've yet to find anything that does, but I think these will be fairly close and they'll be a lot easier to service down the road. They'll sell you seals, and anybody who can rebuild a shock can rebuild these Dobinsons. They even take the time to give you a nitrogen fitting port so that you don't have to drill in the body like you would on a Bilstein. Eibachs, similar life at this price point, but if you're really using them off-road, I do think even these might last just a little bit longer because they have more oil, more dampening force, and the seal quality, very similar. In terms of how they mount and everything that connects to them, they use OE, bone dead stock Ford bushings in the lower mount, reuse your factory top hats as well. So they should last pretty much forever. Nothing lasts like stock bushings. Now a polyurethane or a spherical bushing, a metal and metal joint is technically stronger, but they will give you a lot more noise, vibration, and harshness. You'll feel more of the road surface, hear more road noise, and although they can take more abuse, have a shorter service life. On top of that, these are, once again, a more trail-oriented shock, so their valving isn't really conducive to driving it hard enough to blow these stock-style mounts up anyway. So you're getting something that lasts a long time, it's easy to rebuild, and everything attached to it is as good as it was stock. And shocks like these, I feel, work for a ton of different people, but if you're in the market for something at a similar price point, and let's say you're not going super fast off-road, you want something super comfortable, and you want something you can set up for the weight you have or the weight you will have, these are gonna be hard to beat. At this price point, there is nothing on the market that is easier to set up for constant load, whether it be by preload or choosing a spring rate for it. They are super optimized per application as stock, so whatever engine option you have, whatever number of doors you might have, they have a setup that works well for you. And simply put, we really like the way a lot of Dobinson shocks have been feeling lately. They handle great, ride great, and if you're looking for something that's more comfortable in stock on the road, better off-road, handles weight, they're a no-brainer. Now, I've been rocking the Bilstein 6112s for a couple weeks now, and I've been loving them. That review's coming soon. But after that, we're throwing on these IMS, and we're gonna shoot them in our normal locations, put them to the test everywhere to give you guys a real idea of how they feel in the situations you might be putting them in. Then after that, we're gonna break down and compare all the similarly priced options like the Eibach 2.0s, Bilstein 6100, 6112s, and the Icon 2.5 EXP to see which is right for you. But if you have questions about these or anything else, make sure to leave us a comment below or give us a shout on the website. Otherwise, make sure you're subscribed so you can see all the reviews coming out soon on my fancy little Bronco. And in the meantime, we'll see you out on the trails.